Yesterday you were a baby, but so soon you are growing too. And before you know it, you've become a lady or a man with children too. Then your health and strength begin to fail you, and you say, now what shall I do? Because the days and years you may have wasted may be memories haunting you. So you see, my brother, that life is so short. It passes so quickly and soon it's gone. You just have one life to live on earth. So remember your Creator while you have breath. So you see, my brother, that life is so short. It passes so quickly and soon it's gone. You just have one life to live on earth. So remember your Creator while you have breath.
I hope that the song, is speaking to you or has spoken to you. Earlier on this morning, I was during my introduction, I was saying that I don't know how old you are, but if you're a young man or a young woman, let the song that just went by speak to you, because life is too short, and by the time you say Jack, you would also be a senior citizen. Now, I said this morning that they were once young with a lot of energy. Now they work just like the young ones of today, like you. You are working so hard today. I mean, they once were like you. They work so hard like you are doing right now. Some of them got married, had children, and catered for their children. Now they are old, and they don't work anymore. They might have lost some friends they grew up with, because death, has placed its icy hands on them. So they might have lost some friends. To some extent, some of them have become even lonely. They have health issues plus many other concerns of their own. We sometimes see them as problematic. We abuse them in many, many ways, and sometimes don't even respect them. Well, I'm talking about the aged in our society. Tomorrow, the whole world would observe the World Adult Abuse Awareness Day. The World Adult Abuse Awareness Day.
Older adults.
Older adults. Okay, let me put that one there. The older adults. So the question is, how should we treat, these elderly people in our society? How should we treat them? And what will make a young man? Sometimes you see some young men, abuse these elderly people, these older people. What will make a young man or woman abuse, an elderly person? We'd like to hear from you this morning as to how you relate to the aged, people who are 60 years and above. How do you relate with them? How do you feel when somebody below their age, somebody who's like 20-something, abuses them or maltreats them? How does that make you feel? Share your thoughts with us on our WhatsApp number 05511119995. As I speak, we're live on Facebook on LUV 99.5 FM. So join us on Facebook as well with your thoughts. Well, my guest is already seated, and before I even, introduce her to you, I've got some messages to share with you, and I know that you take your safety serious, just like we also take our safety seriously. And so we are telling you, or we are asking you, or we are encouraging you to get security doors from Widilocks. That's where if you get your doors from, you can be rest assured that you are safe. Now, Widilocks deals in Israeli security and internal doors. Their doors are elegant, affordable, and durable. It has a gladiator locking system, that is to say 13 bolts lock all round into the galvanized steel frame. Now, their doors do not make noise when opened or closed, which of course does not allow people to monitor the movement of the people in the house. Now, aside from that, it is specifically coated with powder paint to avoid peeling of paint. It weighs over 60 kg for a single door. It comes in single, large, 1.5, and even double doors. Now, you can also order for special height doors, depending on the frame size of your door. Now, these doors are made of galvanized steel, so it's rust-free. At Widilocks, keys are coded with 5 keys per door, which means that they cannot be duplicated under any circumstance. If you want peace of mind, security at home, the office, the bank, the warehouse, go straight to Widilocks to have a door that lasts so long without any replacement. Now, there's a special offer for architects, for building contractors, and for real estate developers. You can contact them by visiting their showroom at Kwama of the Durban Sokoban Road, or you can place a call to them or send them a WhatsApp message to 050-87-777-755 or 0575-777-755. Willie Locks, we protect what matters most. Abigail is with me in the studios of Love 99.5, and she's going to help us, enjoy and have this amazing conversation. If you're an aged, you're above 60 years, you are a senior citizen, maybe you're in retirement and you're listening to us, we salute you this morning. And we say God bless you and give you, longer life and good health with more joy and fun and pleasure. Leo Stanley, why, you disagree? So what is that gesture supposed to mean?
It's just what some old people told me about old age.
What did they say?
I'm saying, yeah, Papa.
And you there, yeah. So the more the music and to me,
David is already there.
Yeah, I'm way there. I'm fine. I'm past there, cry. Bobby, good morning to you and thanks for your time. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah, good to have you. So this conversation, let's start off by trying to understand what this World Elderly Abuse Day is all about. What is it all about?
Okay, so I think before we were born, the world got to know that there is a big problem with how the youth treats the elderly people. So a day was set aside for us to just talk about it, sensitize the youth, sensitize the whole world about the need to give them the necessary respect that they need. So that is basically and tackle all other issues of elder abuse.
So when we talk about elderly abuse or the maltreatment that they, is meted out on them and all that, let's be specific to Ghana. What are some of the abuses that these elderly people, receive or go through?
Okay, for Ghana, with the experience I've had with elderly people, I think it's mostly the neglect and the emotional abuse or the verbal.
So it's neglect and verbal abuse, which of course constitutes, emotional abuse as well.
And abandonment. I've experienced abandonment once, where I visited a place. It's a destitute place. There's this old woman who was telling me that I think the children are not actually her children,
her biological children.
Yes, she raised them up.
And
I think the children do not know how to handle this woman now. So they brought her to the destitute home, told her they will come back. And since then, I think I went there. It's been a month since I went there, and they had not returned.
What has changed in our society? Because growing up, we had a high regard for the elderly. You'd hear stories about when you bought, a vehicle and it's you are sitting and an elderly person enters the vehicle, you stand up and give your seat to the elderly person. It didn't just happen in vehicles, even in churches and other places. We accorded enough respect to the elderly, to the aged in our society. What has changed?
Well, I think it's the education that maybe that generation had, because you see the old one gives the information or the way of life to the new ones that are coming. So if there is a change somewhere, then it means there was a generation where they mix these values,
But that was inculcated in them. They saw it, they witnessed it. To some extent, maybe they even lived it. They gave their seats to the elderly. They showed respect to the elderly. They say an elderly person carries some, food items from the market, food stuff and all. You carry it to the home of the person and all that. So how come they were not able to carry it on?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Maybe there was a point where that education stopped. Maybe those values were not being inculcated, into the youth then. So they also grew with what they knew. But it's carried on like this. Or maybe we have stopped talking. Yes, because, these things, you don't just say it once and you stop. We've stopped talking and we've stopped practicing ourselves. Because, there's a saying that the young people copy what the older ones, do. If you bring a child to the world, it's what you do that you also implement. So if the generation now is not doing it, then at a point in time, somebody stopped doing something right. So the young ones that were coming could not see the essence of, doing these things. And I think the Western culture is also, kind of diluting our system in a way, because you know how it is.
So I'm sitting here and I'm asking myself, commonsensically, shouldn't I know that I ought to give respect to the elderly? Shouldn't I know that it is wrong to insult, to abuse, or to do something against the elderly? I feel uncomfortable even doing it to a peer, somebody of my age group. How much more an elderly person? So doesn't our conscience speak to us when we do these things, when we neglect them, when we sometimes even physically abuse them or verbally abuse them? Doesn't our conscience speak to us? And let me put this question on this leg. So this woman you talked about, who has been, neglected by not her biological children, but she raised them.
Yeah.
What would make these kids who were raised by this old lady neglect her and abandon her in a destitute home? Is it to suggest that, well, some, when they are raising their kids, do not have the right bonding, or they themselves do not treat the children well and the children are paying them back? What will make a child look up to an elderly person, 60 years and above, and abuse that person?
I think one, for me, the kind of training I had, there is no way that I can even do that to my parents. So maybe the upbringing is also one aspect.
What about the upbringing?
The upbringing, the way you raise your child.
What is absent in there that will make them grow up and then despise or look down upon or abuse?
Okay, so you parents, you have to be responsible. You have to be there for the child. There is a way that you handle a child when she's not going the right way. Sometimes we make it look so like, I said, we hate this child. And if we don't get the opportunity to explain ourselves better to them, when you beat a child, bring the child back, to yourself and explain why you had to do that, so they understand why you did that. Some children will grow with the mindset that my parents hate me because of the way we have handled, certain things when they go astray. And sometimes too, when we have a lot of children, we are not able to share the love among them. You realize that the love goes to the last person, then the first, second are just, not that they are neglected, but they don't get it as the Kechi is getting. So they also have their own emotional concerns that when they feel that kind of separation or bonding, it's not there between the mom or the father and them anymore, it's also send different signals, to them as they grow. So as you said, the bonding, kind of diluted, or there's a separation. So they will feel the need as you are the parent because they don't have anywhere to go. But then as they grow, you realize that bonding also kind of lacks. They will give you what you need, but they will not be there.
Can it also be attributed to the pressures of today's living?
Yeah, it's also part of it. And parents don't have the time these days, for children because school fees. I need to work for money. I need to do that. The man is working, the woman is working now. But before, we had the women at home, taking care of the children while the man goes and comes. So a woman, you know how it is. Yes, you ensure that this child, are being taken care of. The bonding is there. You are there 24/7. You check what they are doing. You counsel them and all that. But now we are also working. So we come home, we are tired. If you don't listen to them, these children may also be bonding with something else. Now they bond with their phones. They bond with internet. They bond with the games. They bond with, So before you know it, that emotional attachment is gradually declining, and that can also.
But again, that same question as to the pressures of today. What I also have on my mind is that you'd want to visit your parents, you'd want to spend time with them, but you can't because, first of all, maybe they are in Kumasi, you are working in Takoradi, and so you are not able to visit them as often as you'd want to. Sometimes somebody would say, but you can place a call to them and talk to them.
Yeah.
But again, you realize that you can go 2 or 3 days without even placing a call to them because of the pressures that yourself you're going through. Is that an excuse not to really be there for the parents, for the elderly?
It's not an excuse, but then, the elderly people, they also understand our situation. You know?
They do?
Yeah, they do. They are parents. They are parents, and they've gone through it before. So they understand the state you are in at this time. They are not expecting much. You know, if you call, that is fine. But if you don't call to, you know, they get hurt because it's like a child who has been neglected by parents. You know, at a point in time, the child will not feel loved. You know, so you just have to make it a point to call. You call your children, you call your wife every day. So you know, it's a conscious effort that you have to program yourself to at least check on them.
We'll talk more about that bit because that's very important to me, and that will get to the area where I would want for us to look at what they need from us. But you realize that the abuse we're talking about comes in various forms.
Sure.
And these abuse are not necessarily from their relations, be it their biological children or their nieces and their nephews. Even out there on the streets, a 22-year-old can look a 70-year-old man or woman in the face and abuse her or abuse him without feeling feeling bad about it. How about that?
You know, we also have this drug abuse. The youth, you know, they go through this the weed, the cocaine and stuff like that. So mentally they may not be in a good state. Then we also have our own mental issues. There are a lot of mental problems that people are going through. Because it's not written on them as in mental problem, we think they are okay. You know, so these things also, because why would someone, it's like going to defile a child and not feel anything about it. It's a problem that the person.
Could it also be they are bringing up people had at home? Because so you were allowed to speak anyhow. You could. In some homes, the children can talk anyhow to their parents.
Yeah.
And the parents do not, rebuke them and tell them, listen, this is not how to talk to an adult.
Exactly.
So the child grows, hits the age of 17 or 19. And he or she thinks that, well, it's normal. I speak to my dad like that anyway. I speak to my mom like that anyway. So I come to town and a little person does some wrong.
But when they were younger, they would do, junior, their son
or So I think that also plays a very, very strong role because our inability to, manage these children very well. There are some parents who will say, when I say she's going to get hurt, and then they just leave them like that. So, it's a train up a child in the way she should go. I believe that there's only one truth to life. And if the child even gets angry at you, let the child go. Get angry. When she realizes the right thing, she will come back to you. It's better than misleading or condoning, things that are not appropriate. She will go and return to you in a very nasty way that at your old age, you'll end up suffering.
Lou, you also have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to know what we can do about the general thinking of old people, especially old women. Once you reach a certain stage, and now what? We'll
get there. I mean, we'll get there. Don't worry, we'll get there. But before we even touch on that bit, because that's why I was saying that they're problematic, and people see them as troublesome and stuff like that. So we'll get there. But these elderly people themselves, how do they feel when such abuse, are meted out to them? How do they feel? Have you engaged with any?
Yeah, they feel really bad. It's a very strong psychological issues for them. I've had some of them call me all the time, and they will complain, my children they are not taking care of me, and not even their children alone. Or sometimes it even goes to the extent of their children's wives. Or so. My daughter-in-law is maltreating me just because my son cannot take that strong stand. I don't know how to say it, but you see, when a man is married, you should be able to handle or manage your wife and your
parents, or her parents.
The mother and the wife. You should be able to handle these.
So your parents, your wife and your mother.
Yes, your wife and your mother. If you are not careful with the way you will handle these situations, you will end up, your wife will end up abusing your mother, your mom, and it will escalate into something else. So that aspect is a very, very critical, area that men should look at, because no matter what, there's a saying that adia penimu etewa obehu no wo akora wo so our perspectives are not the same. You see, so from whatever angle this person is coming from, the parent, she can be right or she can be wrong, she could be wronged, wrong, but it's up to you to know how to manage your mom and how to manage your wife. Let your wife understand the situation with an elderly person so she doesn't cross certain bounds, but if you leave it like that, because you, the man yourself, have issues with your mom, so it's okay for your wife to also handle it anyhow. It comes back to you, the man, because you love your mom, you love your wife, and now they are all pulling you, so it becomes
brings to mind this song from Papa Jansen. So we hear no mommy in so form of be but these abuses that we met out to these aged, be it from within, that's our home, that from the children, from the relatives, or from the people outside, is it possible they can drive them to their early graves?
Yeah. My thesis was on like older person with physical challenges. Yeah, and it was a qualitative study, so I had just about 10, and out of the 10, 4 of them said they wish they were dead.
They wish they were dead. Yeah. Reason being? Because
of the treatment they are getting at home. Most of them had stroke. And self-care is an issue, and if the family members are also not there, finances is also an issue. You know how when you are not in the health sector and you get stroke, you think that it's just like headache, you just take medicine and it goes. Then they will spend a whole lot of money, herbal, this, that, and now money's become depleted. And when there's no money, even sometimes your children get a little bit fed up, because if they are also not in the position that's financially sound, then it becomes a whole lot of issue. They have to wake you up early in the morning, bath you before they go to school. And this whole misunderstanding of how to even handle the whole thing is also an issue, because you are discharged from the hospital, but nobody teaches anybody at home how to handle the rest of this issue. So it's a whole lot.
Elsewhere, they have built structures, you call it destitute homes, but there are places where the aged can be taken to. Do you think it's about time we have such, places in Kumasi where we can take them to?
It's about time.
Because they out there, they have their own rooms, they have their own beds, they watch their television, they can mingle with people, their age group, they can play all manner of games. So even if you don't have that time to go spend with them on a daily basis, they can be among their peers. And you think we need that kind of a thing?
We need it. Because of what I do, I get calls. And sometimes they think I say home care, as in you bring people to the home and I take care of, but I haven't gotten there yet, But what we do is we train whoever is not a health personnel, like the caretakers at home, so we can dispatch them to the homes.
Do they live in the homes?
Yeah, live
in. Okay. Yeah. But these young ones who abuse these elderly persons, don't we have at the back of our minds that one day would also grow and get to their stage and would want to be treated better?
There's a way the mind works, and if we don't push certain values in there,
we'll get it wrong all the time.
We'll get it wrong all the time.
So now let's look for remedies. And what do these aged people need anyway? What kind of attention or care do they need? Let me start off with this one, where I mentioned that we see them as being troublesome. We see them as being problematic. We even abuse them by calling them witches and wizards and all manner of things, like you even mentioned, What do they really want from us? How should we relate to them and treat them?
Okay, so with the witchcraft thing, it's we have been programmed that anything that is evil, is connected to witches or stuff like that. Over the years, we've watched movies where elderly people were branded witches. And why? Because they have the wrinkles and, the poverty issues make it even worse, So all these have been programmed in our mind. It's now in our subconscious. So we see these things. And we also, in our minds, we think that, so for elderly people, they are witches, then we give this information to our children, especially when they are also getting closer to our own, parent or your in-laws, parent, grandparent, then, it goes on like that. But have you realized that when an older person is very rich, she can afford the creams, look good, the makeups and all that. Nobody brands these people.
When you are a man.
Yeah, you are a man. Nobody brands them.
And
like
interestingly, some of the young ones would even want to date them and sugar
date them and because they are attractive and So it's about time that we as a youth, we have to think about changing the status quo of or elderly, this elderly thing.
So they can be lonely sometimes, huh?
Yeah.
So what should we do? What do they really need? First of all, from their children, from their immediate family, like relatives, and then the society at large. Let's take it from there, from their children, from their relatives, and of course from the society at large. What do these elderly aged people need from us? Okay,
so from their children, we have to, as you said, sometimes we are very busy. We need to check on them. We need to get, let's say, caregivers. If we are not there presently, we need to get somebody who can at least support one or two things, because as they are getting weak, they will need that, support, someone being there. And
let her learn a bit. Sorry.
Someone being there. You cannot say throughout the year you have not seen your parents. It has to be inculcated into your plans.
I'm guilty.
Go home, spend time, sit down, spend time, because you see, these elderly people, we should know that they are not children who are now coming to start life. They are people who have lived it, and irrespective of whether poverty or not, life experiences cannot be bought at the school. You can't buy it anywhere. They can only talk to you about it, so you get something from it as a young person. So we need to at least have time to be there and sit down with them and communicate. Let us know their issues. Sometimes the caregivers themselves can even be abusing them, and it is only by you having time with them that you can know certain things that are being taking place. So these are from the children side. I think we need to make the time, and we need to spend, we need to sometimes I wonder why children, maybe 3, 4 children or 2 children, and when they have to combine resources to take care of their parents, it becomes a challenge. They leave it on just one of the child to just take care of, and the others just relax. It doesn't make sense to me. So exactly. So I think we should all make the effort. It's not really financial every time. God had a way of putting everybody as a child, at certain places. In a family, someone can have all the money. Another person may not really have the family, but have the money, but have the time. The time. So you realize that one of them doesn't really live far from these parents. They are mostly closer, just to check on them. But some of them may also go far, So God has a way of arranging all this because of our old age.
And what about society itself? I have another question.
And the society, the communities, we don't organize any programs for these elderly people. They are just there.
About the society, that was what I wanted to come. I want to know systematically, what can we change? I'm using the example of the old lady who was whipped.
Savannah.
And at the time that lady was whipping the old lady, there was almost more than 100 people around. They were all looking at what was happening, and nobody had the courtesy or the guts to stand up for the old woman and say, "Stop! This is what you are doing is wrong." I always think about it, like, to what extent would you think that this woman is evil to that extent? Say
everyone is quiet.
It's not therefore.
Like if you are
and what we believe by traditions and cultures that we live in, all that.
How strong is that bond that nobody, not one single person even stood up and said, "No, don't hit."
Let me go to her defense.
It's strong, and that is why we are suffering. When the subconscious mind accepts something as true, it takes a lot of reprogramming, new information constantly being spoken about to be able to change that concept. Otherwise, that fear will still be there. So the elder abuse you are talking about, the definition is not just maltreating alone, but also an inaction that can cause harm to them. So as we are talking about, these people who are just looking and were not doing anything, they've all abused this woman, indirectly.
Oh yes, yeah. But again, my question is, in the instance where you said this woman raised children, not her biological children, but they've abandoned her at a destitute home or whatever. My question is, even if you were not treated well by your parents or your foster parents, how do you forgive them and say, listen, I'm going to love them and treat them well? You don't know an aged from Adam. You meet him or her in town. How do you say to yourself, I'm going to do right by this person? How do you do it?
So one, we need to change whatever mindset that we've carried.
How do we change it?
Education.
Okay, like we're doing now.
Yeah, like I'm doing now. You need to sensitize. You need to give them the right information. I do caregiver training, but it's a training that, to me, everybody should listen to, because it goes in depth into understanding the elderly person in diverse ways. And most people who have come to, go through this training, they go like, wow. You see, some of them, they are remorseful because they've acted in ways that they didn't know.
Okay.
So ignorance is also one strong issue that we also have to deal with.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think the education.
So how do you relate to the aged in our society? Not just the ones that live with you or the ones that you refer to as your grandma or your grandpa, but the aged in our society. Do you respect them well enough? Do you treat them well enough? How do you feel when somebody, like Leo stated, how do you feel when an elderly person is being abused by a younger person? Give us a call now on 03220 83596, 03220 83597, and 03220 83598. How can we change this behavior of ours and give enough respect to the aged in our society? But Abigail, isn't there a blessing in showing love, giving the right care and attention to the elderly? Isn't there a blessing in there?
It's a blessing, but this blessing comes with hard work as well. And that is the part where people refuse.
Indulge me. I'll get back to you to talk more about the blessing thing, but let's go into the phone lines. We have Godfred on the line. Hi, Godfred. Good morning. Hi, Godfred. Hello, Godfred.
Hello, David. David. Good morning, David.
All right, so Erasmus, good morning to you. Godfred, please call us back. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the conversation. Yes, Erasmus, let's hear you, sir.
Yeah, David. You see, this very conversation is very, very important. Sometimes you look at the person even more treating that old person, you ask yourself, does he even qualify, or does she even qualify to talk to that woman or that man the way he's doing? But the whole thing boils down to upbringing, David. Most of these youth, like I keep on saying, come from homes that the parents themselves are very irresponsible. And people think giving birth is all, but forgetting that giving birth has a lot of things to go with. And for that matter, we have a lot of them not actually getting the proper treatment and the kind of stuff they need to live in this society. It's so sad. It's so sad, David, that sometimes for some of us, we were brought up in a way and manner where guests were used to talk to us, but not the kind of people we have today. And I think it's time we speak some of these things into the heads of our youth, because other than that, our society will think. Thank you.
But let me ask you, Erasmus, let me ask this question. If you are in town and you see a younger person abuse somebody 60, 70 years old, what do you do?
David, I remember one incident in Accra. I sat in a bus. There was these two schoolboys. We had two old men boarding the bus, and the bus was full. So I got up for one to sit down, and these boys were just sitting down. I asked them to get up. One said he wouldn't, and I said, I would discipline you if you don't. If that man were to be your father, would you watch your father stand in a bus going to a whole, from Circle to that of Kanda? Get up. I made him to stand up.
That over what do you call it? Oh, more than when you have too many people in the bus, what do you call it? Overload. I mean, because if the seats are full, let the woman look for another seat to another vehicle to board. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good.
Okay. Let me ask the causes of this menace now. In fact, it's happening in Europe whereby now you now have aged homes where people dump old men and old women there to be taken care of by people. Back in the days, this thing wasn't in the sense because you have your grandmother or your grandfather coming to live with you. We have this now, we adopted it nuclear family where children don't even know their grandparents. And this thing is, as a result, it is caused by these pastors. Where they always say witches and wizards are only the old women and old men and old women in our society. So the youth tend to, look down on these old men. And it's so sad. These pastors, and I ask them, you the pastor preach, thinking that someone is, so when you preach that, I ask myself, are you going to be young forever? Just as a song was it the song that you played, the insert that you played before you started the show? You're suddenly going to grow old. How would you want to be treated? That is the first question as a youth listening to me now. How would you want to be treated when you are old? Would you want to be scorned by your youth, the young ones that because whatever you do, if you throw a ball to the wall, it bounces back to you. So the youth right now, if you want to be treated well, treat the adults with respect.
Yeah, you Nanakoko, thank you very much for joining us. 03220-83596, 03220-83597, and 03220-83598. We're talking about elderly abuse.
Hello, David.
Abuse of the aged in our society. What accounts for all this, and how can we, improve upon it? Christoph, good morning.
Good morning, David.
Good morning.
I hope you're fine, sir.
Yes, I am, sir.
Yeah, this is a good program. I want to say that the way some of us treat the aged is an eyesore. You see, it's only in Africa that we associate evil to the aged, not forgetting that one day we will also grow. And I want to tell sons and daughters of people that, look, the way you treat your father, your mom, and all that, that's how you also be treated when you are old. The law of karma. And so, long life, it's a blessing. Maybe when you grow, you have many years and all that, God has blessed you. But people are not living now, they are dead. So if you see somebody 60, 70, 80, I think that's when we should even show them care, love, and concern, so that same measure of blessing on them, the Lord will give it to us. So let's treat the aged with respect, with dignity, and all that. Thank you very much, David.
Well, Chris, thanks very much for calling. Roderick, I see you on the monitor. Roderick, hold the line for me. George is on now. Hi, George. Good morning.
Good morning, David. How are you?
I'm well, George. Good to have you, sir.
David, we own the elderly so much that we can never pay. David, sometimes it is the upbringing. David, the other day I went to the electricity office to buy electricity. This elderly woman came with her driver. You see, the woman was so heavy that was holding a walking stick. So we were seated in the line waiting. So this woman came and then walked straight to the counter to buy her electricity. A certain girl, David, a girl about 60 years, with his glasses on and sitting down pressing his phone. David, this girl did not give this woman chance. So the woman had to come and sit in the line. So when I was sitting with her, then she moved her phone and started showing me her children in America. You see? So it is sometimes the upbringing. David, back in the north, if you go to the Gambaga witches camp, all the witches there are old women. I don't understand. If somebody is sick in the house and they go to their so-called soothsayers and pastors, they go and say it is the old lady in the house that is causing this. So, David, please, we must change our attitude towards the elderly.
Thank you very much for joining us. Roderick, good morning. Hello, Roderick.
Yeah, good morning, David.
Hi, Roderick. Good to have you, sir.
Yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity. David, what I want to say regarding this discussion is we raise children and go back to some of our traditional values. I am 50 plus, and when we're growing up, there was no way a woman in the neighborhood will be coming from the market and holding stuff, and you sat around or you played. We all ran to go and collect the load from the woman and to her house. And we did it with pleasure. That's how we were raised. That's how we were wired. Now, in fact, I want to thank the caller who disciplined those boys in the front row to let them stand up. I mean, we don't do that. When OSA was running, we did the same thing. I went to America. I was in the bus. An old lady, it was full. An old lady was standing. I stood up and gave my seat. And asked me, let's go back to
Roderick, thank you very much. Let's pick our final caller, and I think it's Kofi on the line. Hi, Kofi. Good morning.
Good morning, Brody. Growing up in the Ashanti region here, we respected old women and old men so highly that it was very difficult to, speak to an old man or an old lady in a way that shows disrespect. Look, in Ashanti region here, in those days, every old man is a grandfather to anybody. Every old woman is a grandmother to anybody. So you see an old man, you call him Nana. You see an old woman, you call her Nana. Everybody. Until such time that these spiritual churches and charismatic churches sprang up in Ashanti region here, and they began to call our old folks Abayifo. And so when that thing started, everybody, every parent, especially the women, they didn't like their children to go near somebody's grandfather, except the one you have in your own house. That is how this thing began. So if we have any blame at all, we should blame these one-man churches, the so-called spiritual movement and the charismatic movement, and those one-man churches who are doing business and they pronounce witches and wizards here and there. They are the people to be blamed.
So, Kofi, let me come in now and ask you. I like the way you've narrated your point, but how do we fix it? How do we correct it?
How do we correct it? It is difficult. It is not going to be possible anytime soon. It is difficult, David. Very, very difficult. Even your own home. If there is an old man who is a cousin to your mother or your father, you fear him or her. You think he is a Bayifo. And so this thing there, it cannot be corrected anytime soon. It cannot.
I think that we can catch them young. That's my thought. Yeah. I think we can catch them young.
Catching them young is long past and gone. Because like I was telling you, when we were growing up, every old man or old woman you see is your Nana. So you call him Nana.
So Kofi, I'm taking it from then. I'm saying that some of us are so conscious of what used to pertain years ago. We have Abigail here, who is still championing love, respect, and proper care for the aged. So if we start this at the creche level, through the nursery level, through the primary level, through the secondary level, at our Sunday schools, gradually, with time, we can revert it. For me, I don't believe in throwing our hands up in despair and say, oh, let's give it a try. But let's go onto our WhatsApp console. What are people saying?
Good morning, David and the team. Thank you very much for this fantastic, informative, and educative program. I think it's time for some of us to come together and advocate for these people, especially the aged. In advanced countries like United Kingdom, we have laws that protect aged and all the vulnerable people from abuse. In UK, we have something we call POVA, that is Protection of Vulnerable Adults. By law, there are certain things you are not supposed to do. I think we can come together. I will be one who will support this idea that it's time for us to protect these people. Thank you very much. And I believe that some of us will have the number of our dear sister or mom who is at your studio sharing this information, and we hope to join her to advocate for these people. They are being abused because we don't protect them.
Well, thank you very much, sir. And I'm happy there are people who still have at the back of their minds that, listen, we're doing the wrong thing, and it's about time we corrected the wrong. Now, Abigail, I'm told that you have a program coming up. What's the program about?
The same elderly, World Elderly.
That's tomorrow.
No, it's starting today.
It's starting today, okay.
Then we end tomorrow.
So what exactly? What do you have? What do you have planned? What are the activities?
Okay, so we have the abuse can be handled in many aspects, like if you are blind and all that. So we have doctors coming on board to talk about like blindness is avoidable. We have gynecologists coming to talk about how we should have to consider gynecology in geriatrics, because some of our elderly women, they go through cervical cancers and all that. And all these start from the youth, so it's up to us to also prepare our minds to listen to these messages. So we handle ourselves whilst we are also getting there. Then nutrition, dieting, how we should go about it, because most of our diseases come from these, sicknesses come from what we eat now. Then on the 15th, our climate sits with the usual sensitization.
Like you're doing here. Yeah. What next year, or even before the end of the year, let's look for a time. I like some of these things. Let's look for some sponsorship, and let's find means of bringing the aged together. Even if at the Ratri Park, we get sponsorship, we bring the aged together, they mingle, they play, they exchange contacts. So even when their own biological children are busy, are unavailable, are out of the country and all that, they themselves can have a platform of a sort where they can be chatting, sharing pictures, sharing jokes, listening to funny stuff. That'll keep them going. I think we can do something like that. Eugene, let's put our heads together. I think we can do something, just like we do for the sanitary pads. We can do something for the aged in our society, because they deserve this. I'm going to speak to some church leaders I know, some of the big ones who have money in our society. So we do this.
All right.
So thank you very much, Abigail, for your time.
That's a question. I want to ask
the blessing bit, the blessing bit. What blessings are there when you show love and proper care to the adults?
Okay.
Or the aged?
So you see, the Bible has said it, that there's blessing in it. But we also forget that, elderly, we have the different stages. Those who are 60s, 70s, most of them, they are active.
They're still fine, yeah.
Yeah. Then from the 80s to the 90s, that's where, they start getting weak. And somebody will say, but me, I just want to have my money and I'll take care of myself. I don't need anybody to take care of me. That is true, but to an extent. And nobody also knows the future. So you see, our elderly people get to that point where now they are weak, they need to be supported. So now you need somebody, whether you like it or not. When they get to that stage where, because of weakness, they become weak, invalid, you need to do a lot of things for them. Sometimes they go through the incontinence where they have to poo-poo on themselves because their body is declining. It's not their fault. And those who are also, it's not easy. So imagine, and those who are sick who also go through such ordeal. So imagine as a youth right now, look at yourself, David. Very energetic, well-spoken, handsome, and all that. Then one day, because of old age, you are just there. You are not a child who is just now coming to the world to gather information. You are already a grown-up man who has gathered so much information. Where you are working, probably you were even the president of very big institutions, or you are even the father as a leader in the home, and you've been taken good care of. You know the position you have you have handled. Then all of a sudden you are there. Then somebody has to take care of all these, So if you are able to, as a youth or a child, to handle all these things that this man or woman will want you to do, clean them, bath them, take care of them, don't shout at them, don't mistreat them, don't abuse them, then now you are getting the blessing.
Yeah, you get a blessing. And there's something I like to say in conclusion, and you and I know that whether our upbringing has changed or not, deep inside us we have high regard for the aged. Menya chini, but we say opening, I know to say sumina or something.
Yeah.
So they can bless you or curse you.
Yeah.
The aged, they can bless you or they can curse you. If one blessing or blessings in life, treat the aged well. Let them continuously say Nyami Shrao, Nyami Shrao, Nyami Shrao, Nyami Shrao Beba also. But so what domo also?
Hi.
We'll drop our curtains here for today's conversation. Abigail, thank you very much. Abigail Meza is her name. And if you have an aged person out there, you want some caregiver, to attend to her living and all that, if you get in touch with us here at Love 99.5, I'm sure she'll sort you out. But at this point in time, we're getting ready to cross over to Joy 99.7 for their main conversation. It's about opportunities in Ghana. There are some group of people who say opportunities do not exist in Ghana. Others say, well, there are loads of opportunities. So the question on the Super Morning Show this morning is, where are these opportunities? Where are they? Stay tuned for that.
I wanna leave my footprints on the sands of time. No, there was something that meant something that I left behind. When I leave this world, I'll leave no regrets. Leave something to remember, so they won't forget I was here. I lived, I loved, I was here. I did, I've done everything that I wanted, and it was more than I thought it would be. I will leave my mark, so everyone will know I was here. I wanna say I lived each day until I died, and know that I meant something in somebody's life. The
Love 99.5 FM. Experience the joy. Love 99.5 FM. Experience the joy.
I was here. I lived, I loved, I was here. I did, I've done everything that I wanted, and it was more than I thought it would be. I will leave my mark, so everyone will know I was here. I lived, I loved, I was here. I did, I've done everything that I wanted, and it was more than I thought it would be. I will leave my mark, so everyone will know I was here.
Hey, Linda, long time, oh. Yes, so. Hey, but wait, oh, Linda, did you win the lottery? I mean, look at your room, your TV, your sound system, your fridge. Hey.
Oh, they are nice, all from Kennedy Digital Satellite. They also sell appliances like air conditioners, televisions, tabletop fridges, and freezers from 100 to 900 liters, commercial fufu machines, home theaters, etc.
Wow.
In addition, government workers who receive their salary through the Controller and Accountant General's Department and still have their affordability package active you can come to Kennedy Digital Satellite and get any appliance of their choice with flexible payment terms. You can locate Kennedy Digital Satellite in Accra at Wager, just at the Old Barrier traffic light, and in Kumasi at Edum near Boss FM, and along the Patasi Main Street near the police depot. Those in Accra can call 0243 074 750, and in Kumasi reach them on 0207 653031.
Kennedy Digital Satellite, where quality sells cheap.
The other day, as I was in my kitchen preparing my special jollof made with lily rice for my family, I heard a knock at the door. It was my mechanic. Instead of calling me to pick my car, he bought it himself. I said, "Sure." He said, "F4." I said, "Take the car back. I will come and pick it myself." As I turned off the fire from under the lily jollof, there was another knock at the door.
We've been talking about for some time now. Where are the opportunities? We always complain about the unemployment rate in the country, the fact that in Ghana today we have some 1.76 million people who are unemployed, and the fact that 25% of young people aged between 15 and 35 are neither in employment, education, nor training. First question, this is a country that has been talking about creating employment for a very long time. So where are the jobs? Why is it that we're still grappling with employment or unemployment at this time of our development? Let me start off with you, Dr. Chumesi Bafo. Where are the jobs? We've been doing a lot of things. So where are the jobs?
Good morning once again, Winston, and good morning to your listeners. Indeed, jobs are not very easy to find. And essentially, opportunities in the labor market are changing because the structure of the economy has changed. And so essentially, back in the years where majority of the labor force was involved in agriculture and agriculture-related services have moved. But unfortunately, the structure of the transformation we see is that the jobs have moved into services. And even in the service industry, we find that a lot of the activities are informal. Informality introduces a lot of issues of low productivity, low incomes, and all that. And so when you look at the structure, you see that we are missing a very important middle, which is a manufacturing-led structural transformation, which would have created a lot more jobs than we see. But that said, there are also issues of when you talk about jobs, and so I'm talking about the demand side, but there's also the supply side as well, which is the capacity of the people that are looking for the jobs and even people that are in jobs. And that is where probably we'll begin to discuss issues of education and skills training. Do the people that are on the labor market looking for jobs have the right skill sets for the needs of the ever-changing demands on the labor market? So those are the issues.
Let's look at the ever-changing needs. You've talked about the changing opportunities. What are they? I mean, where were they, and where have they changed to?
Okay, so essentially, as you mentioned about carpenters that were all over the place when we were growing up in the 80s and 90s, you'd see that there was the timber boom, for example, in Ghana, where there was a lot of woodwork and wood processing activities that existed. These days, that industry is basically fizzling out. And so you find that even the carpenters that are in there are now importing, depending on imports of most of their raw materials to do things. So if people were cutting wood, for example, from the forest, processing it manually and doing it, you see that there was a whole lot of value chain jobs that were created along those lines. But as those jobs, those opportunities no longer exist, and now people are importing semi-finished products, it means essentially that we've exported those jobs outside. And the opportunities, when we come to skill sets, there's always the need for a lifelong learning, for example. Carpenters need to learn and adopt new technologies because the furnitures that our grandparents used are not the ones we are using now. And the system should be in such a way that people are trained so that they are consistently upgrading their skills and meeting the needs of the time.
So let me bring Constance in, and you've made a very important point. The times are changing. Okay, today people would want imported furniture. But I've been talking about that. I know how Ghanaian, makers of furniture export their furniture to other parts of Africa. I know Ghanaians who export their furniture to Nigeria. I know the Ghanaians who export to other countries. And in there, they will tell you that, if this one goes to Nigeria, it's very expensive. So when they see a Nigerian man coming, they actually sell it, at a higher price because they know he's taking it to Nigeria. So, Constance, while there may be changing phases of our development, these phases also come with opportunities, don't they?
It absolutely does. I think to add on to what Dr. Priscilla said, you really need to look at the demands of industry. Industry's needs are changing, and then the needs also of the consumers. Because of our open free trade policies, people do have now the option to select what they want. But I would like to also go back to when we talk about our industrialization agenda. For any country to industrialize, the three basic things: industrial welding, plumbing, and electrical. These form the basis of any development of any country. I'd also like to make reference to our colonial past. We were trained by the British to be civil servants, and so we were trained to work in offices. And so there was no TVET agenda right at our independence. And so when industry changed, education really laid bare what was missing. And then you also have industry trends that have changed, and we really don't have a base. So these are the root cause of what the issues have been, and then we can then look at how do we really look at leapfrogging, if I may, to really look at how we can close this gap as quickly as possible.
Constance, talking about trained as civil servants, for all of us who went through the BECE system, we as a people identify that we have been trained as civil servants. So we said we were going to change our education. Started in 1972, ended in 1974, eventually implemented in 1987. So why are we still where we are? Because we said we were going to go into technical and vocational education. TVET, we said we're predisposing people to that form of education to lead our next phase of transformation.
So that's a good question. So if you look also at the education policies that have, evolved. I remember I did A-levels, and the students who did GSS and SHS, I remember technical drawing was very big.
Yeah.
And then somehow it got taken out of the curriculum. I used to remember every single GSS person going around with a drawing board. The drawing board. Exactly.
But I think it's out now. Yes.
Exactly. And then somewhere along the line, we shifted to this, I don't want to be seen holding a drawing board anymore. But if I'm then doing more the white collar type, jobs or studying for that, then it seemed a bit more accepted. So we have to ask ourselves what happened. Where is that gap? What happened, and how do we go back to introducing these technical skills that are very crucial to skills development? So again, probably let's look at the long-term development of a country, that for every government that comes, they come with their own education policy. Yeah. And so we don't seem to be moving forward, but backwards and forwards all the time. But now we have a crucial situation on our hand. I think this is where the conversations around policy and how do we ensure that certain sectors are not touched when it comes to conversations around our development.
That's a good one. But just listening to everything that you're saying, it looks as if it's a balance between what government does and then how our attitude is as a people. We can't always control the fact that every government that comes is changing, things. So how do we then adjust ourselves so that we are relevant regardless of what the external forces are going to try to do?
I think you mentioned something about attitude. Yeah. I'd like to also say that as a society, there's also something fundamentally that has gone wrong.
Yeah.
People seem to celebrate
making money at all costs. I remember when I was growing up, my parents would ask you, what does he do? But no, nobody asks. So there are questions around, you've made money, but nobody's asking. Now, I know a lot of young people right now will sit behind a computer and do all sorts of things. My son, who's 24, will tell me that, we are all into the IT business. But what does that mean? What is the IT business?
What does that mean?
But next thing you see these young people driving all sort of cars, and nobody's questioning, nobody's asking. So you find young people who say that, but I'm in the IT business, and I'm making money. And so when we look at our morals, our values, hard work means that learning to start with small. For most entrepreneurs, we know how we've started our journeys. So this is the question around role models and mentors who really are not questioning how money is being made. So if you find a young person whose classmate all of a sudden is making money, are you now telling me you raise the question around being a sales agent? There are easier ways of making money. So I think as a society as well, we've also failed our young people.
But if there are easier ways of making money, that would mean there are lots of opportunities, aren't there?
No, not easier, just easier. Sorry, but I think questionable ways of making money, yes.
But let me get to you, Dr. Bafo. So you've talked about the changing trends. I'm interested in that. So why is it difficult for us to take advantage of these trends, these changing trends? Why haven't we?
Okay, great. I think that I will get back to the educational policy issue and the fact that the 1987 educational reforms, we saw that there was fundamentally something wrong with the educational system. And so, all these technical training subjects were introduced. But one thing that needs to be said is that technical education is not cheap. If you look at your typical academic pursuits in that regard, an educational system basically needs bricks and mortar, a few fixtures here and there, and then the trained teacher. But for technical education, you need a lot more. So when you look at the educational reforms we've gone through, the financial support was not there. So on paper, the policy looked great. But in terms of implementation, I know with regards to technical teachers, for example, at a point the system could not find technical teachers because our training institutes were not producing enough technical teachers. And so as a country, I think that it's important that we place a lot more emphasis. Now you hear about free TVET education, and then you would want to know, do they have all the necessary equipment that is relevant for training, for example, a plumber, an electrician, auto mechanic in that system that can compete globally? Those are the issues that we need to interrogate. But essentially, aside the issues of colonial legacy where we value white-collar jobs over blue-collar jobs, the emphasis also needs to be on the incentives as well, because in the labor market, it is incentives that drives the investment. So people look at you are an accomplished electrician who lives in the neighborhood. You are living a decent life because you are an electrician. Parents see it, children see, and they would also want to aspire to be like you. But in our settings, you don't find a lot more successful people like that. So you see that the returns to the technical education is not that much. So the expectation is not there, and people are not investing in it. If your child says they want to be a plumber, I'm sure you would have a conversation because you think that they cannot have a decent life pursuing that career. But if these all these avenues are more formalized in a form that there is some kind of, for example, certification where we know there are standards, and for that matter, plumbers can have a decent livelihood, earn a decent income until retirement, and So all those things would be an indication for people to invest and go into it and revise the lowly perception of TVET education.
I'm glad that you brought the lowly perception, because that was going to be my next question. So, for example, in the UK or in the US, you learn how to plumb yourself because you can't afford a plumber.
Exactly.
Or you paint yourself because if you're going to call a painter and you're going to pay an arm and a leg. So is the issue also here that we don't value those jobs because we think that they are, and it's funny because you're building a house and the whole plumbing system is given, or somebody is doing it who is barely educated, and then you don't respect the person who's doing it. How does that even work?
Exactly. So you see that in the educational system, when you look at the data, for example, in Ghana, within the secondary education system, only 7% are into TVETs, right? And then when it comes to transition from the secondary to the tertiary, we know that about 30% will transition. So within the 7%,